In this lecture, we are going to discuss some common threat displays as well as defense mechanisms shown in different lizards. We'll have a few looks into some of the more interesting lizards in the animal kingdom, as well as discuss the evolutionary advantages of demonstrating these behaviors. Many lizards use very similar mechanisms to deter predators from attacking them. One that is pretty universal among many smaller, agile lizards is the push-up display. This consists of the lizard quite literally doing push-ups. The number of which it does is correlated to the amount of energy he has. A high number of push-ups indicates to a predator that the lizard has a great deal of energy and would easily be able to outrun it. This is an example of honest signaling, communicating to the predator exactly how much energy the lizard has. One example of lizard that performs this behavior is the green anole lizard, shown right here. This species is commonly found in the southeastern United States and also has another defense tactic that is commonly found among lizards. Other than the push-up behavior, another common threat display in lizards is making themselves look much bigger. This varies in specific display between lizards, but the basic premise is about the same. For example, the green anole lizard has a large piece of skin under its neck called the dewlap. If you look right here, you can see this lizard's dewlap. When it feels threatened or needs to assert its dominance, the anole lizard will flare this dewlap and turn sideways towards the predator, making itself look bigger. By turning sideways, you can see the prominence of just how large the dewlap is. It is also possible that the red color of the dewlap is a way of threatening the predator, and you can see here how bright this dewlap is. It is likely that lizards with larger or more colored dewlaps were able to threaten predators enough to scare them away. This leads to the passing down of genes coding for large dewlaps, while lizards with smaller dewlaps, who could not threaten predators, would have been eaten and not likely survive to reproduce. In addition to the green anole lizard, the frilled lizard, shown right down here, he's a favorite of most people, uses a similar display. Found mostly in dry areas of Australia and New Guinea, the frilled lizard will expand the large flap of skin around its neck and hiss aggressively. The frill around its neck stands up via these kind of cartilagey bones, not bones, but cartilage pieces that are found in the flap of skin. Around its neck, and makes the lizard look much larger than it is. However, this lizard is all bark and no bite. Once it has scared a predator away, it runs away on its hind legs to a nearby tree and escapes the threat. This behavior has likely persisted through generations due to the fact that frilled lizards who are able to scare their predators first and kind of stun them almost before running away had a greater chance of surviving to reproductive age. Another lizard who uses this kind of make themselves look bigger threat display is the horny lizard, more commonly known as the horny toad. As you can see right here, he's kind of a staple in lizard lovers, I guess. This lizard is commonly found in desert-like environments around the western US and Mexico, and tends to puff up its body as its primary threat display, making itself appear much larger. This may be a threat display or simply to indicate to the predator that it is too large to eat, kind of saying, hey, you'll never be able to swallow me. For these last few lizards, it appears that the ability to maintain a small body size but also appear large when threatened is the best combination of appearance and behavior. One of the other primary defense mechanisms of the horny toad is its famous horns, which kind of dot all over the body. They're not just on his head or anything, but they're all over the place. You can see some back here too. It will often display these forward or thrash them about, attempting to make itself more difficult to bite or swallow. So really, the longer the horns or the more of them it has on its body, the harder it is for a predator to wrap its mouth around it and really bite down and kind of get in there. The sheer amount and size of the horns on the horny toad likely evolved because lizards who had much larger spikes were less likely to be swallowed by predators, thus allowing them to live to reproductive age and pass down the genes for larger horns to their subsequent offspring. So one of the more unusual behaviors of the horny toad that a lot of people have actually heard of is the last-ditch effort that it makes to protect itself. So when it's severely threatened, and this is usually threats by canines or larger mammals, the horny toad will squirt an extremely foul-tasting blood out of its eye to deter a predator. And there have actually been researchers that have tasted this blood who have said that it doesn't taste as bad, but it takes a long time for the taste to get out of its mouth. But apparently canines aren't too fond of it. So it does this through the use of a lot of thin-walled sinuses that are filled with blood located in its eye sockets right here. You can kind of see this like bulging eye socket right here. And so what the lizard does is it will very quickly increase the blood pressure within these sinuses, and this high blood pressure will cause the sinus walls to break and blood ejects from the eyes. So this behavior, if need be, can be repeated multiple times also. So through this final defense mechanism, though this final defense mechanism can be very effective at deterring predators, it can only be used through the damaging of the inner sinus cavities. Despite this seemingly painful and damaging cost, the behavior has persisted, indicating that the benefits of survival, as well as an increased fitness, shown right over here, far outweigh the cost of having to actually break these sinuses in order to initiate the defense mechanism. So another very common defense mechanism found in lizards, which is mainly observed in geckos and skinks, is tail dropping. So the process of tail dropping is usually to serve as a sort of distraction so that the lizard can get away, which is similar to the behavior of the frilled lizard, where it would flare its neck and then run away. So it's kind of like a stun mechanism almost in the same way. Because when the tail detaches, it continues to move around, typically in a violent thrashing manner. So this will attract the attention of the predator, giving the lizard itself a chance to escape somewhere to safety. And you can see down in this picture right here the actual detaching of the tail. So the lizard is able to perform this mechanism through the evolution of what is called the fracture plane. Usually, in most areas, when most areas of the body are hit or stressed, what usually happens is they knit together and they tense up, and that's what causes like a muscle contraction. However, along the fracture plane shown in lizards right here, in lizards who drop their tails, the muscles will pull apart rather than knitting together like most muscles do, resulting in this extremely clean break of the tail. So there is little to no blood involved in this process, meaning that it's likely that this behavior evolved over time to get to this point. Lizards who experienced less blood loss over time during this display were probably more likely to get to safety without bleeding out, and this allowed them to survive and pass on those genes of less blood loss through the tail dropping. The final and most common defense mechanism of lizards is camouflage. It is extremely prevalent in geckos and most famously chameleons. These lizards have either evolved to have a similar coloration to the environment that they live in, or they can physically alter their appearance to look more like the area that they're currently in. So it has been thought that this behavior is not only a defensive tactic, but can also be a method of communication and socializing. So the chameleon, shown down here, sorry about the blurry image, is probably one of the more interesting subjects of camouflage. And so the way that they actually do it is they have an outer layer, 2 layers of cells on the outside of their body, called iridophore cells, which are an iridescent pigment-containing type of cell that have the ability to actually reflect light. So when a chameleon wants to change color, it simply needs to alter the structural arrangement of the outer layer of the cells. And this leads to a change in the way that light is reflected off these cells, allowing the chameleon to change color in relation to the area around it. Presumably, the light from the area around it will reflect off of the chameleon, making it almost like a mirror of sorts. So this is an extremely sophisticated form of camouflage, while most lizards are simply able to blend into their existing surroundings. And the horny toad is a good example of this. It uses its sandy, kind of beigey coloration, we can see back here, to blend itself into the rocks and dirt in its environment. It also often tends to burrow down into the ground, even further camouflaging it with its environment. There's other lizards, such as the Aegean wall lizard, shown right up here. Bet you couldn't spot him. That also use the existing color of their skin to blend into the environment. So there was a study done by Kate Marshall at the University of Cambridge that has discovered that Aegean lizards, who are most often found in areas, with clusters of islands like the South Balkans or Greece. These lizards will actually choose to bask on rocks that more closely match the color of their own bodies, which is pretty interesting. So it has been shown that this allows them to stay hidden from potentially predatory birds flying overhead. And studies have shown that this actual behavior, where they try to match where they bask to their body color, particularly happens a lot in areas of high predatory bird densities. So there are a couple theories as to how these lizards know what color rock they should bask on, ranging from the fact that it's genetically controlled or that it's a behavior observed and learned from older lizards during childhood. And this latter theory would probably explain the prevalence of this behavior in Aegean wall lizards, especially in predator-dense environments, because of the specificity of where this behavior is observed. Young lizards could possibly observe older lizards getting eaten on rocks that are different than their own color and stay away from this type of behavior. But again, it's not fully known because this behavior hasn't been completely researched yet. And as you can see, this lizard over here is basking on this rock, which is in a very similar color to its actual body color. So as we have seen in this lecture, there are very many defense mechanisms and threat displays found in lizards that span across species. Camouflage and increasing the appearance of body size are very common behaviors that seem to be prevalent among many species in many environments. Thank you for listening.